I knew there must have been a reason that they were backing this flop for so long to the tune of so many tens of millions of dollars. Yes, Netflix, proud distributor of With Love Meghan, is only staying sweet with the Sussexes because they want the divorce deal, which bosses believe will be a ratings winner. Wow. How sinister is that? But it does make sense, given that Meghan has already shopped a post-divorce book to publishers. That news confirmed by Vanity Fair. Marina Hyde, the hard left Guardian columnist, not usually one to slag off Meghan Markle, made this revelation. Watch. Brittany, editor of the Royal News Network, joins me now. Brittany, this is astonishing if it is the real reason that Netflix is hanging on. But I guess it's like the publishers. They're only interested in Meghan's book once she's able to tell all on Harry.
Exactly, Dan, because when you think about it, Netflix made the most when Harry and Meghan, quote unquote, broke up with the royal family. So it makes sense that they can make equally as much money if Harry and Meghan themselves break up. And you got to wonder what Netflix knows behind the scenes because they are obviously watching and they know more of the internal dynamics between the couple than perhaps we, the public, do. So they may be seeing all this going, yeah, they're not going to make it. And at some point, we need to be here to capitalize on it. Or Meghan herself has been slowly hinting around at various things. Because again, when you look at her Instagram account, Meghan, and as ever, and then on the show, she's going Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, instead of Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. She actually included the, which is actually part of the title on the American Riviera Orchard thing, but she's taken that away. So you just gotta wonder, is she already writing herself off as a divorced woman even before the file has already been made and just preparing for that? And Netflix is there, biding their time going, okay, once the iron is hot, once actually things get juicy and interesting, then we'll strike because Harry and Meghan, just content creation is not their thing.
All right, folks, this is absolutely wild. If you ever wondered why Netflix hasn't dropped Meghan Markle despite her embarrassing failures, well, we just got the answer. Netflix is not standing by Meghan out of loyalty. Oh no, they are literally waiting for her and Harry to split, because they know it'll be a ratings goldmine. Yes, you heard that right. Meghan is already shopping around a post-divorce towel book. And guess what? Netflix is keeping her on standby because they want the exclusive rights when it happens. I mean, how cold is that? Netflix has basically decided Meghan Markle is only worth keeping if her marriage fails. And if you think about it, this explains everything. Remember when Meghan's podcast deal with Spotify was cancelled for being a grift? And yet Netflix still keeps her around? Now we know why.
Brittany, what is absolutely fascinating, and by the way, great analysis there, but what is fascinating to me is that that's why she went with the big Meghan Sussex launch, which she knew was going to be the viral moment because she was snapping at Mindy Kaling, but she left it in because, again, that is setting her up for a post-divorce life. In her world, she never wants to be called Meghan Markle again. The post-divorce book will be authored by Meghan Sussex, and the way she'll get around that, Brittany, which is obviously very transparent, the way she'll get around it is by saying, oh, but I want to keep the name because I want to keep the connection to my children.
Yes, very true. And if you look at the whole thing, she's just trying to figure out how to sort of keep that title and keep whatever she can about the royal lifestyle, even though she sort of despises it. At the same time, I don't think she has a lot of respect for Harry and their relationship. And it just seems like she's always been angling for that divorce, despite their epic proclamations of this being the most amazing love story you've heard endlessly. It just seems like really things are beginning to splinter behind the scenes, and she's looking for whatever route she can. And I think if she had sort of addressed the Meghan Sussex thing slowly, then maybe people would have been more interested in grasping onto that. But I think she sort of dropped it like a bomb, and everybody's going, well, you're still Meghan Markle to everybody else. And she'll, I think, still be Meghan Markle for as long as possible. She may get some people to still call her Meghan Sussex, but at least to me and you and probably everybody else. She will mostly be Meghan Markle. So I don't think she'll ever get away from that.
No, because she's not Megan Sussex as far as I'm
Mm-hmm.
concerned. I mean, I really do feel that. Now, what was interesting is that as this Rest of Entertainment podcast discussion continued, Richard Osman, another big lefty, actually advocated for Meghan to return to acting. He thinks she should team up with Ryan Murphy for a Netflix drama. No, exactly. The third act is going to be the post-divorce act. We know that. It's a matter of when, not if. But what do you make of Richard Osman suggesting that actually she just needs to go back to acting? It's something I've been thinking for a long time.
I mean, it's not a bad suggestion. I mean, she obviously was an actress. I think, though, the problem, I think Meghan even herself acknowledges to her benefit, I guess you could say, is that she was not a good actress. Like, part of the reason she was fishing for a wealthy guy is that she was sort of aging out of that sex pot role, and she doesn't really have enough acting chops to get another job. And so she's sort of just going around and trying to figure out something else. But I mean, when it comes to acting, she could probably get a couple of acting gigs. But I think that was something she should have done when they came back to California instead of waiting so long. Because I think at this point, she's damaged her reputation so much. Her Instagram following is so tiny when you think about it. And according to what I've been hearing a bit, is that sometimes they hire actors based simply on their Instagram following. Like, that's who gets priority. And there's a lot of actresses who have a lot higher Instagram followings than she does. So at this point, I just don't know how many people would be that interested. Could she have a strong career as a Hallmark actress? Yes, I do think she could. But if she's angling for at some point an Academy Award,
Oh, yeah,
I
that's
think
what she
that's
wants.
a dream that's out of reach.
Netflix made millions when Harry and Meghan left the royals. Now they want another payday when they split. Hollywood insiders believe Netflix knows something we don't. Are they seeing cracks in the Sussex marriage? If Netflix has no faith in Meghan's career unless she gets divorced, what does that say about her star power? And let's talk about this. Because folks, Meghan is already making strategic moves to separate herself from Harry. Royal expert Brittany from the Royal News Network says that Meghan has been subtly changing her branding. She's now calling herself Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, instead of the Duchess of Sussex. You might think that's a small thing, but in the world of branding, it's a major sign that she's creating a solo identity. And the biggest red flag? Meghan has already started talking to publishers about a post-divorce book. I mean, come on, if your wife was already writing a book about what happens when you break up, wouldn't that be a bit concerning?
Exactly. She's never going to get a blockbuster. Absolutely not. Because the Hollywood studios would know that she would be toxic to box office. But I think she could get a Netflix series where she headlined in the same way as, say, Michelle Keegan. Because there is that natural curiosity when you don't actually have to shell out for a ticket. And we saw that with the Suits revival, the Suits renaissance on Netflix, which actually began because people were curious to see, oh, can Meghan Markle really act? Now, all you need to do is watch With Love Meghan to know, yeah, she can sort of act, but not very well. Not very well. Now, the Netflix thing is interesting, though, Brittany, because more and more we are seeing stars of Netflix turn on With Love Meghan, which is a huge concern for the company. The latest is the comedian Christina Pazisky. She has had big Netflix specials in her own right, yet she's speaking out, proudly speaking out against Meghan Markle and With Love Meghan. She is now the third Netflix star to do so, following on from Catherine Ryan and Whitney Cummings. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. But before we actually get to her critique, Brittany, how significant that it's almost like open season from Netflix stars on Meghan Markle. There's no sense that she is protected by the company because it's just so bad.
It's so bad. And you're looking at people and they see her and they see the inauthenticity and they're thinking about their own deals with Netflix or their struggle in the entertainment industry. And they're like, how in the world did this woman and her husband get $100 million deal? and she can't even seem to cook right on a cooking show. I mean, so many questions there. I think people just watch Meghan's show and they just feel the fakeness of it. And they see people like Martha Stewart who have done it much better for decades longer. Or even somebody like just Jennifer Garner, and she does little cooking things in her kitchen and they seem so natural and normal. And then you have Meghan like in this perfect kitchen and the perfect life and everything, trying to emulate that. And you just don't even believe that Meghan Markle is really even passionate about anything that she's doing. Like from that show, the one thing you can tell that she loves doing, that she has a really big passion for, is her fancy cursive. That's like the sole thing. She does a little flower
Yes,
arranging.
which
She can
is
cook
her
and host, but
thing.
it's a cursive.
Yeah, and
It's
that
her
is
thing.
her thing. And it's
Hmm.
always been her thing. And
Yes.
exactly that's where you see, I guess, some degree of passion rather than, holy shoot, I have to pretend that I actually do all of this stuff myself. Whereas we know at the palace,
Exactly.
it was all being done by servants. And we know at the Montecito mansion, it's all being done by staff. That's very, very clear. The thing about Martha Stewart is she came up in a very natural way. Now, it wasn't just Christina Pazensky, by the way. Whitney Cummings, who had already gone off on Meghan last week, has actually gone even further, Brittany. Now, I just want to play you her full outraged video and get your response, because I think we should see it first before we discuss.
Meghan has started changing her branding. Why now? She's already discussing a post-divorce book. What does she know that we don't? Is she trying to secure her own Netflix deal without Harry? At this point, you have to wonder, is Meghan already planning her escape? And now let's talk about something that could make things even worse for Prince Harry, because his immigration records, they're about to be made public. As you all know, Harry admitted to illegal drug use in his memoir, Spare. And here's the issue, that could have major consequences for his US visa. Normally, if someone admits to taking drugs like cocaine, psychedelics, or marijuana, they're not supposed to be allowed into the US. So how did Harry get his visa approved? And now that these records are being released, will his visa be revoked? If Harry lied on his visa application, he could be deported. If he told the truth, why was he allowed in when others are denied? Could this be the real reason Meghan is preparing to distance herself from him?
Oh, that's so good.
Obviously, very good. And she's
So
been
good.
quite facetious in a lot of those parts. But isn't it interesting, Brittany, the fact that even now there are moments from With Love Meghan which are really showing up how Meghan actually feels. And it's true. When you look at it, she's mortified that her friend is daring to speak when she has something to say.
Well, I think it's funny because when the show first aired, people were so focused on like sort of the Mindy Kaling thing, and then you had the pretzel thing. And so it was really the first two episodes people were really dissecting, and then most people didn't watch the rest. So this is, I think, episode 3 or 4. And what I find really interesting too is that Whitney really picked up on the idea is that Meghan is just trying out different personalities and trying to find something that fits and that people like. And it's like, that's so true. And we're all like watching it going, we don't see the real you ever. And she's just trying out different things endlessly, hoping something sticks. And it's like, no wonder you're failing, because we don't get a sense of who you are. And it's clear when you're with your quote unquote friends is that you can't really stand them taking any attention away from you. And this is, Delphina is also the woman she sort of gave the backhanded compliment to, I thought. She said, she's as beautiful on the inside as she is on the outside. And I was like, okay, I could read that two different ways here, Megan. Which one do you mean? I didn't think it was particularly complimentary. And this is really the wife of Harry's friend. So how close are they? Probably not really that close. They didn't seem to know each other super well. So Megan is just wanting the attention, trying to find different personalities and hoping something resonates with the public. But every time she tries out a new one, people like her less and less.
Now, we've also heard from Justine Bateman. Remember, Justine Bateman was the actress, Brittany, who really went viral for criticizing Harry and Meghan's disaster tourism over the LA wildfires. And she has now written a Substack, which she calls the Victim Olympics 2020 to 2024. And look, there on the medal, Brittany, is the little the Sussex graphic. And here's what she has to say. She says the problem with Meghan Markle is not what she's doing, it's the victim Olympics road she took to get there. God bless Meghan Markle. Truly, I don't think anyone really wishes her ill. There's nothing wrong with having a cooking show, starting a podcast or two, or changing your name after you marry. The problem with Meghan Markle and her husband Harry is that every opportunity they have explored or exploited over the past few years has been due to their very aggressive Victim Olympics campaign. And the difference between doing that 2 years ago and doing it now is immense. It's 2025 and no one wants to see victims anymore. No one wants to watch someone play act at something they didn't earn. No one wants to go along with another's narrative anymore. And I think she is so right, Brittany. I mean, not that, by the way, I ever signed up to the Victim Olympics back during the Oprah interview or anything, but it really does feel like the whole world, even the entertainment industry, is just in a different place.
At this point, it's looking really bad for Harry. And if his visa is revoked, that could be the final straw for his marriage. And now let's look at the bigger picture, because at this point Meghan's career is hanging by a thread.
It so is, Dan. Just in those couple of years since they left the royal family, like the victim narrative really grabbed hold during the Oprah interview, and then they got a little bit of that during their Netflix series as well. But I feel like really because so many people claim that victimhood status, we're sort of seeing what it really is, and that sometimes it's just sort of a grift. And that's definitely the whole Harry and Meghan have fallen into, and that they're just constantly complaining about everything going on in their lives or complaining about the internet and how bad it is. And yet Meghan wants to be on Instagram and everything like that. It's just, people are just so incredibly sick of it. And I feel like it was really because Justine really started catching steam as soon as Donald Trump was elected. And I feel like people feel like the veil has been lifted a bit, and this sort of, tramping down of any sort of free speech or anything saying, well, woke is bad, is just sort of being alleviated. And Harry and Meghan definitely fall into that category of people who, yes, their whole spiel worked in 2021, 2022, but it's 2025 and we're not interested in that victim narrative anymore. And that has run out of steam. So they really need to actually prove themselves based on their own talents rather than just complaining that their time in the royal family, where they lived in palaces and had servants and staff and security and all these things, that somehow that was bad. Nobody's really buying that anymore with, kind of inflation and everything. People have had a tough time, and Harry and Meghan complaining from their $15 million mansion is not working anymore.
No, it's not. Also not working, by the way, Brittany, is the sort of with love as ever promo that we've seen over the weekend. Let me take you through some of it. Princess Carmichael actually pointed out she could not cope with this because she was quoting Audrey Hepburn while clearly posing for a garden pic. And she said, I can see the scene now, frozen in place with her hands in the bushes, trying to look ethereal, wholesome, and like she cares about the bush. Harry, or some poor assistant forced to keep snapping away with the fake poses. Meghan Markle, we see you, girl. Then Nancy Sidley also took another shot, and this one is actually where she's sort of digging Brittany. And she says, I'm always laughing hysterically like a crazy person looking in the opposite direction whenever I till the soil too. And there's another moment that Nancy has picked up on too, saying Meghan is definitely a fan of the Kardashians and contrasting the confessions of a female founder, which we revealed last week she'd actually ripped off, with this promo picture of the Kardashians. Brittany, I know you're not a fan, are you, of this marketing push? You don't think it's very of the moment?
No, it's very behind the times. And actually, when you look at the picture where she's quoting Audrey Hepburn from Instagram, that's actually a shot taken that was she was wearing the same outfit in a picture in People magazine that was taken in June of 2024. So technically, this is a promo for American Riviera Orchard that she's now using for As Ever. And so the branding here is so totally mixed because she's working on it. Lemon tree, lemons are in orchards. And so it's just doesn't make any sense at all. And it's so incredibly posed. And the other picture where she's looking at and grinning at nothing, it's like there must have been her dog or one of her kids there, and at some point she decided, oh no, scrub them out because I don't want anybody to see anybody else but me looking at a blur and making, I mean, that's terrible Photoshop, by the way. Like somebody could totally do that better. But this whole Meghan Markle PR push is a mess. And I would argue she's getting to be overexposed at this point. There's way too many think pieces. I think she should have actually waited for her podcast at least a couple more weeks, because at this point there's just been way too much Meghan. She's too overexposed and she hasn't proven herself at all. We see everything and people just like are getting more and more irritated every time she announces a new project. And you definitely don't want that. And unfortunately for her, she doesn't have the talent of Taylor Swift. So there's not really a way for her to sort of, kind of reinvent herself again. So this whole thing, though, is an absolute mess from a branding, marketing, PR, everything perspective. This has been an epic disaster. I don't know who she talked to on her podcast, but clearly she did not listen to any advice.
Think about it. She's failed at every major opportunity she's been given. Spotify deal, cancelled. Netflix projects, most scrapped. Hollywood star power, diminishing fast. The only reason Netflix is keeping her around? They think she'll be valuable if she divorces Harry. That's it. And honestly, if Meghan is really planning her post-Harry era, she might be in for a rude awakening, because without Harry's royal name, does Hollywood even want her anymore? At this point, Meghan's career is on life support. And if Netflix is only interested in her divorce, what happens if Harry decides to stick around?
No, she never does. She never does. Now, Brittany, can you believe it? 5 years since Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's freedom flight from Canada to Los Angeles. Now, we're potentially going to get big news in the legal battle, the ongoing legal battle over his immigration records. But before that, I just wanted to remind you, courtesy of Paula M., exactly what was said on that freedom flight. I mean, number one, I always just find it so cringe that they'd never met Tyler Perry. Like, this was all just a celebrity thing for clout. But anyway, that was the freedom flight 5 years ago. Now, the bombshell news, Brittany, that in the next 24 hours, Prince Harry's visa file will be made public after a bombshell ruling by a judge mid claims he lied about the drug use. This is, of course, the ongoing, very important case by the Heritage Foundation. Some people aren't having high hopes about this, though, Brittany. According to Taz, for example, posted on X, whilst I believe he either lied or exceptions were made, I don't believe this will reveal anything. He's still in the 1% by birth and he will be looked after, but I'll bet this has pissed him off. Harry's visa file to be made public after ruling by judge. What do you think on this one, Brittany? Are we going to find out the truth?
I mean, this will be sort of interesting to see. I actually interned with the State Department. I've actually seen visa interviews. So to me, this is like kind of going back to that time period. And I'm thinking about that process, and I don't know how much will be revealed, but I imagine a fair amount. Like, they won't release personal details like his date of birth or I mean, we all know what that is, but address and those sorts of things. There'll be certain things that are kept away, but I imagine we might get a decent amount. And what would be really fascinating is what visa he is here on. Is he on a diplomatic visa? I think that would be a huge no-no, and that should be reevaluated immediately because he should not be here on a diplomatic visa. Does he have a diplomatic passport? Because there's actually an interesting case with Marius Borg-Holmby, who's the son of the Crown Princess of Norway. He's been in a lot of legal trouble recently, and it's sort of come out that he had a diplomatic passport because his parents have one, even though he's not a blood royal. And so he would actually be able to come into a country on his normal passport and exit on his diplomatic passport. So there's a lot of interesting sort of implications here in terms of what Harry is here on, what passport does he have, does he have a green card, those sorts of things. How are they able to make money? Because if he's not legal here and if he doesn't have a specific status here, he might not be able to make money. I think that would be really fascinating. If everything's technically in Meghan's name, that would be hugely interesting. So it remains to be seen, but I think this is definitely something that needs to come to light, because if he did lie on his application, we should know that. If he's here on some sort of diplomatic something, we should know that. And that should be immediately adjusted, because he's here just to make money and live and try to, in his own words recently, because he has more opportunities here. And I mean, we know the quote unquote opportunities means money. So he's here to make money. And so we definitely deserve to know what he is here on, because he's trying to kind of angle himself as a prince of the United States. And neither him and Meghan Markle are that. And they need to understand they're private citizens. They don't have any status here beyond just that of titles that really mean nothing in the United States.
So, let's break it all down. Netflix has been keeping Meghan Markle's deal alive, not because they believe in her, but because they think her divorce will make them millions. Netflix knows a Sussex divorce would be ratings gold. Meghan is already shopping a post-divorce book. What does she know? Harry's drug history could put his US visa at risk. Could this be the reason Meghan is preparing to distance herself? Without Harry, Meghan's career is on life support. Is this why Netflix is waiting?
Very good point. Now, Brittany, it is, of course, St. Patrick's Day, and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, has been with the Irish Guards for their annual St. Patrick Days parade. And you can see her here. She looks so happy, doesn't she? Just amazing to see her out and about.
Yes.
But actually, I wanted to have a look at Catherine, the Princess of Wales, and Prince William at the rugby over the weekend, because wasn't this so lovely? A couple truly in love. And what was interesting is that the couple also shared their children's growing passion for rugby as they attended Wales versus England, the Six Nations match at Cardiff's Principality Stadium. And Catherine even shared that Louis has started touch rugby, while George, who I think people didn't really know was particularly sporty, plays the growing up version of the game. And she said they really do enjoy it. Of course, for folk who don't know exactly how the whole rugby thing works and why was Catherine in the changing room with all of the England players, but William wasn't, well, that is because William supports Wales as the patron of the Welsh Rugby Union, and Catherine backs England as patron of the Rugby Football Union. So this is actually like a bit of rivalry going on here. But they looked so in love despite that, didn't they, Brittany?
They did. And it's just so sweet to hear some little anecdotes about the kids and, them getting into sports, because we know their parents are really, really sporty. They are even competitive in royal engagements if there's sort of a physicality component to it. And so I'm just so excited that we get to see more of this side of Catherine and William and the children, and that the kids are doing so well. And I think that the kids, as far as they can, Catherine and William are really trying to give them a very normal childhood. And I think that's something wonderful and fantastic. And we know as well, Catherine's family is very, very into rugby. They would have to plan their weekends around the matches. And so I think this is definitely a bit of influence maybe from the Middleton side as well. And I'm sure Grandma and Grandpa are there on the sidelines as often as they can to cheer on the kids. And so it just sounds like they're having a wonderful time. And it's just so great to see Catherine and William, I think, so strong. And they don't have to be so touchy-feely, clingy like Harry and Meghan do. They're just there. They share their sweet little moments and glances, and you get so much from that rather than sort of the displays Harry and Meghan put on. So I far more believe in the Catherine and William love story than the Harry and Meghan one I got.
At this point, the writing is on the wall. Meghan's time in Hollywood is running out. And if she doesn't secure a new deal soon, her entire career could crumble. So now the big question: is Netflix really waiting for a Sussex divorce? Is Meghan already planning her exit from Harry? And will Harry's US visa records finally expose the truth? Let me know in the comments.